What's going on, guys? We're
Hi.
here at Cryo Pure Spot. It feels like we haven't done this in forever, but we're back at the Cryo couch. And today's topic is going to be really interesting because today's the first day of spring.
Yeah.
But we're going to go backwards a little bit.
Well, we're going to talk about the winter blues because it's something that I think everybody has that kind of down feeling about the winter and the cold outside and how gray it is here in Chicago.
Even though it's spring, we're still going to be dealing with a lot of cloudiness, a lot of gloominess. So there's a lack of sunlight, which typically the UVB rays are great for helping with, creating vitamin D and things like that in your body, which helps with your mood. But we'll kind of get into that. So today's topic will focus on what you can do naturally and effectively to help yourself feel better, whether it's winter blues, whether it's a little bit of depression, you need some mood stabilization, you're anxious, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some tips and tricks that we can kind of help with. So
there are a lot of very holistic ways to help deal with anxiety and depression. And for those of you who don't know, coming up here is April, and April is National Depression Awareness Month, as is anxiety. So we can kind of speak to some of the things that we can do to decrease that type of stress that we experience.
Yeah, and one of the really interesting things that I was reading about the other day is that the World Health Organization estimates that there's around 350 million people of all ages who suffer from depression. And the really, really interesting thing about it is a third of those people don't respond to conventional therapies to help with that issue. So I think that there are things that maybe we can help with, and there's other modalities you can do in your life that will help to help stabilize your mood and make you feel better and just be happy.
Yeah.
Happy for spring.
So one of the things that we can do, I know that I mentioned the cold as winter, but actually extreme cold can have really good benefits. So for instance, our whole body cryotherapy that we have here can help impact your depression and your anxiety. Actually, in Europe, it's used to help treat anxiety and depression.
Yeah, and I'll geek out a little bit and explain why. Number one, chronic inflammation has been shown in literature to lead to depression. And sorry about the phone.
Thank you.
We're still in the middle of our day here, but it's been shown to lead to a major role in depression. And they were doing tests on this, and there's this test called the CRP. It's a C-reactive protein, which measures the level of inflammation in your body. And they saw that people with depression had about 50% higher level of CRP in their blood because there's a link there that we believe, I don't know if it's been proven or not, but there's a link that we believe is with chronic inflammation and with just being depressed. But as far as the whole body cryotherapy side goes, I think the biggest component of what it can help with and how it can help is that release of norepinephrine.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into the chamber and you go into that fight or flight state, it releases norepinephrine, and it releases norepinephrine through cold stress. It can be from almost 200 times to 500. 200 to 500% more norepinephrine in your body because of it. Norepinephrine is your feel-good hormone. It's an endorphin, and it helps with mood stabilization. It helps with vigilance. It helps with mental clarity.
And one of the studies on our website, actually, let me tell you the name of the study, the influence of whole body cryotherapy on mental health, said that they detected a change in mental state, improvement in mood, deep relaxation, freshening up, and euphoria. So the type of things that he's talking about and the impact of norepinephrine helps to create these types of feelings that combat depression and anxiety.
Yeah, and the other very kind of interesting thing when you think about norepinephrine, whole body cryotherapy, probably people are thinking, I'm not going to put myself in a chamber because I don't believe in it, whatever. Norepinephrine is actually targeted in pharmacology for that purpose, for depression. They use drugs to increase your norepinephrine to make you feel better. So why not do it naturally?
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it. Everyone has their own opinion.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum is the heat side. The heat side is very interesting as well because there's this cool process. When you get into into a sauna, an infrared sauna, any kind of heated thing. Even when you do like heavy like cardio or exercise, and you start feeling like kind of like, oh, I gotta get out of here. I don't feel so good.
I have this happen every single time.
every time we get in the sauna, Paige is like, I don't really feel like
I
it.
can't.
Yeah. So.
But it feels good. But I mean, towards the end, that's how I get.
Right. So the chemical, the hormone that's getting released is called dynorphin, and it's the opposite of endorphins. Dynorphin makes you feel kind of uneasy and not feeling so great. But the cool thing about dynorphin is that it actually increases your sensitivity. And this is kind of a geeky thing again, but there's these things called mu-opioid receptors, mu-opioid receptors, and that's what endorphins bind to. And dynorphin increases the sensitivity of those mu-opioid receptors. I can't speak. So the next time that you have an endorphin release of any kind, you're automatically going to feel better.
In regular person speak. When you go into the sauna, it feels extremely good. It feels very relaxing, and towards the end, you can have that reaction where you have some discomfort, and what's released in that process allows you to have happier feelings later.
Yeah, and so that's kind of an interesting thing when you think about people in Europe that go into like a hot tub and then they go roll around in the snow, or they go into a sauna and then they go out into the cold environment. That's that whole idea of releasing that dynorphin, increase the sensitivity, and then you get the endorphins rushing, and then you feel really freaking good. So we don't personally do sauna to cryo here, but you can do it different days, or at least 4 hours apart.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the not spectrum really, but another modality that you can use that has really nothing to do with us, but just kind of from the root cause of winter blues, you don't get as much sun, right?
Right.
Here in Chicago, when it's the winter, when it's gloomy, even in the spring.
Same with seasonal affective disorder, right?
Correct. Well, that's what the winter blues are. Correct. Right. So the whole cause of that is that you're not getting the sunlight. UVB is actually, UVB rays are the ones that penetrate your skin and allows your body to create vitamin D from that. 70% of the population, believe it or not, is deficient in vitamin D.
Hi.
Let's see. I was like, is someone here?
No, I am.
Yeah, so I'm probably deficient. I take supplements for it, but most of us are deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D, all you really need is about 15 minutes a day in the sun. However, if you think about it this way, people with darker skin, people like me, we can't. The melanin actually blocks UVB rays, so that helps to prevent that from happening. If you put on sunscreen, you're blocking UVB rays.
But still wear sunscreen.
Correct. Well, yes, of course. So what are what's the other option? So you can use supplements. You can eat fish. Fish are high in vitamin D. Mushrooms are very high in vitamin D, especially if they've been exposed to sunlight. But for me, personally, I take supplements. 4,000 international units IU per day is probably like the average default. The best way to know how much you need is to get lab values done and then kind of track it. But as far as the mood component of vitamin D, what happens is you get the UVB rays, or you take in your vitamin D, and then what happens is the vitamin D actually converts tryptophan, which is an amino acid, and makes serotonin. It creates serotonin out of it, which is a neurotransmitter, and the neurotransmitter of serotonin is responsible for balancing mood. So that's kind of the scheme of how it happens. Does that make sense?
It does.
If it makes sense to you, then it makes sense to you guys, I hope.
Yeah. So that does make sense, but I think that we've all experienced having a good amount of vitamin D, and we all know that that's good for us. There are other ways that you can impact that too. Sometimes actually the feeling of light, and that's where people have maybe, they put around brightness, or they open up their windows, or they let light into the room. That can just in itself have a good impact in your general outlook
Chromotherapy,
too.
Correct. Yeah, lights, LED lights. There's a lot of little different things you can do, but I think as far as literature shows, scientifically, for me, my personal preference is either doing heat therapy or doing all of them, which I do. Heat therapy, cold, stress, and vitamin D supplementation or eating a lot of fish, which I love.
I have vitamin D little chewables, and they make them flavored, and they taste delicious.
Like a little child.
Yeah, like a child. The sauna for me, the impact of that, and I mean I also have this impact of I switch between the sauna and the tank, and I end up feeling really good. So it's probably that dynorphin impact. But I really feel good when I sweat out the toxins and get rid of it. Just kind of feels like a way to flush everything negative out of my body and let things go and relax. And when I get into the tank, I feel really energized and excited. And I think that's like something that's actually kind of hard to come by. And we're all this stressed, and if you have anxiety and if you have depression, I don't have either of those, so I can't say that I understand firsthand. But I've felt anxious before, and I felt sad before, or generally down. And it's hard to pick yourself up out of that without some help somewhere, somebody to talk to, going and using one of our services, having some vitamin D, eating differently, being active, letting more light in around you. There's a lot that you can do, but we just figured we'd address some of it.
Yeah, and I think that's all we got for today. Wanted to keep it short and sweet, and we look forward to doing our next one. And
yeah. Oh, the other one is acupuncture. Sorry.
Oh, well, there you go.
Sorry, one more is acupuncture, because there are people who have like depression or anxiety, and they're going through other things. And acupuncture is a good way to deal with it as well. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the beautiful spring weather we're getting in.
Welcome to spring!